3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon and welcome to our workshop. I'm calling the meeting to order and now roll call. Ms. Tina.
Mr. Fayette. Here. Ms. Catulli. Here. Mr. Forehand.
Here.
Mrs. Hill.
Here.
Mrs. Davidson.
Here.
Okay, do I have a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
So move. I'll second.
It's been moved in second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Workshop, Ms. Galicia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Esteemed members of the board, it gives me great pleasure to call Mr. CJ Nolan, Director of Facilities Maintenance and Operations, to the podium. He's going to be providing the board an update on all the summer projects. He was extremely busy all summer. And I would like to really take this opportunity to thank him and John Speratos, the IT department, for all the work that they did during the summer. So take it away, CJ.
Good afternoon, President Forehand, honorable members of the board. Thank you for joining me in this project update. Thankfully, it's the end of summer. We made it. So we're going to jump right into it. One of the first, most of our projects this summer were at the high school. So we'll be going over a lot of the projects at the high school. And starting off with this summer, one of the very first things we did was prepare to remove our interim housing. If you remember, we originally got our interim housing for the construction of the STEM building. And as we've moved teachers in, we carried it over for one additional school year, and we removed it this summer. With those interim housing portables removed, you could see in some of the pictures below, it's left quite an open area with lots of possibilities for the high school to utilize. In the upper right of the slide, you could see where the interim housing was in red on the right-hand side, and then there was 3 additional portables on the left-hand side that were also removed. So we really cleared up this area. We've currently reseeded it with grass, and we've put new irrigation in so the grass survives for the long term. We're working with the site on how we can use this area in the short term, maybe for lunch tables or lunch eating area. And then also looking at it in the long term. With it centralized right behind the Performing Arts Center, it really provides a lot of opportunities to create maybe a lunch pavilion or extend the outdoor amphitheater of the Performing Arts Center as well. So we're exploring all those options with the site and getting some input from some of our designers as well. Moving on to the main summer project we took this summer, it was the classroom renovations at the high school. So this summer consisted of building 100, 150, 300, and 400. In total, that was about 48 classrooms renovated with over 60 spaces, but 48 classrooms. All of those renovations are currently complete with exception to rooms 405 and 406. Now, if you remember, those 2 rooms were designated to be our life skills program rooms for our life skills students. And we had to make some additional changes kind of late in the contract for our casework. So they have some specialized needs, and we'll go into more detail further along this presentation. But they had some specialized needs for appliances and casework where they could really practice those life skills before they join our ATP program. Just to recap, our classroom renovation scope included the removal of all wire mold and the reroute of electrical data and audio visual through the walls. So if you remember, some of our older classrooms had a lot of wire mold directly placed on the walls. That is something that provides a short-term fix, but aesthetically isn't really the best, and it removes wall space as well. We did a complete repaint of all of our classrooms. That includes the ceiling grid, the doors, the frames, the HVAC registers, the walls. So it was more than just the walls. We really repainted every surface. So every surface in those rooms is new. There's new carpet and LVT flooring throughout, new ceiling tiles, and we also tried to do at least one wall as full height tack wall in each classroom. In addition, we did audio visual connections, both at the teacher's desk location and at the teaching wall, depending on where they wanted to present from. We had new 5x8 whiteboards for each of our classrooms. the larger classrooms, we're able to put in 3 new whiteboards. Some of our smaller, more like English classrooms, we were only able to fit 2 on the teaching wall. What's unique about the 5x8 whiteboards is with the projected image being in a 16:9 ratio, it allows for about a 25% larger image to be projected on the whiteboard than a 4x8 would, just because of the restrictions in height on a 4x8. Go ahead.
Just because I think it's really incredibly powerful. You had interaction with every teacher to find out how they wanted, where they wanted the outlets?
Just about. Some of the moves changed. So the way we did it is we held tours throughout the year, and we received a lot of input from those tours. And where we could accommodate where a teacher wanted their desk, that's where we put it. There are some exceptions, but for the most part, we did go over those teaching notes with every teacher and either told them why we couldn't do what they asked for, or we did do it.
Thanks, CJ. That is really kind and thoughtful. Thank you.
And the last thing that I have on this list is the window tint and safety film. As you know, all of our windows have safety film on them, but as we were applying the new tint, we had to reapply the safety film to these classrooms as well. So I was going to start off with Building 100. Now this is our math department classrooms. As you can see on the slide, there's 2 after pictures. Building 100 was one of the projects that started a little bit earlier in the school year. We were able to get a head start on it, which is why I don't have as many before pictures, but as we go through, you'll see lots of befores. So in the after, you could see on the left-hand side how this teacher made use of the tack wall. And because the whole back side of that room is lined with tack wall where he has a lot of his art, pictures, and other things hanging up there. On the right-hand side, you could see we have the 2 projectors on either side. So this is a 3 whiteboard setup where you have 2 projectors on either side and an open whiteboard in the center. So this allows for our teachers to present or lecture from the center while having visual aids adjacent on the right and left of them. In addition, we removed much of the wire mold in all of these classrooms where possible. And so these 100 classrooms are structured a little bit differently than our 300s and 400s, where they're more rectangular, and that's why it allows for this 3 whiteboard setup, and some of our other classrooms don't. They're much more refined. They look nice. Oh, yeah, that classroom too. Now, the renovation of the lecture hall, I wanted to make sure to include a before picture of this one because it's one of my favorite spaces that was transformed over the summer. You can really see how we had some of the more outdated blue walls. The carpet was very old. The desks were extremely old. And with those desks, we previously had an issue where our newer desks were unable to fit on each of the steps in the lecture hall. So one of the things we did, as I go on to the next slide, is we added stair nosing that goes on the edge of each step, and it provides a little bit of a buffer so we're able to put our new desks in the lecture hall. As you can see, we have new flooring throughout. If you look at that top right picture, the back wall is tack wall as well. And we have new carpet. And then we also, if you see the 2 islands in the front and the big wood doors, those hide an operable wall. We also painted that operable wall and we restained all of the wood finishes. So we couldn't necessarily replace some of our wood, and we wouldn't want to because it's still in good shape for the most part. But what we tried to do to make it look a little bit better is restain it and apply a new coat to make it look as fresh as all of the other new surfaces look. Yeah, so that's our LVT. It's our luxury vinyl tile that it has a 30 millimeter wear layer to prevent scratching or anything like that. And it's also very maintenance friendly where you don't have to wax it like you would like a VCT, which was previously there.
And what is the carpet? It looks like a good industrial carpet. What's supposed to be the life on that?
The carpet has a lifespan of about 15 years, maybe 20. Like in the lecture hall where it's not as used every day, it may last a little bit longer. It has a power bond backing that also prevents any moisture from getting into the carpet. So it's like a rubber backing that goes below it. It prevents moisture from being absorbed in the carpet, and it makes it so you don't get that musty carpet smell after several years.
Right.
So it should stay fresher longer.
Okay.
Good color choice, too.
Yeah.
So can I ask how the lecture hall is used I don't know if that would be you or Andrea or Ryan, how the lecture hall is used?
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Davidson. So currently we don't have classes scheduled during the day in 153, 154. However, there have been years when we've assigned a biology or a science class in there. Right now it's being used for meetings. So last night we actually used it for the first time actually and had a great audio-visual setup to be able to use to host a booster parent meeting for all of our boosters at Los Alamitos High School. So it's available just as a large space. Some of the larger clubs at lunch, I know, also use that space. Our Christians athletes group is very large and they meet in that space once a month. Our link crew, any really student group that's probably over, I'd say 75 who meets regularly has been accessing 153, 154.
Thank you. Thank you.
So moving right along through the 150 building, this is a picture where you could see we had existing power poles, existing science islands, and some existing casework that we also removed. Now with this classroom specifically, we had a need from our CTE program where they wanted to have a shared lab space in a center classroom with 2 adjacent science classrooms. And in that shared lab space, they wanted to have a vision light or a window in between the classrooms so they could supervise if any students are in there as well. So you could see in this before picture with all of the islands and the power poles down the middle, that we were able to transform it into this, where we have the window on the right-hand side, where we did have to eliminate some casework, but you could see we installed new casework directly below it. The flooring is the same tile as the lecture hall. And we also restained the wood cabinets in this room as well. And on the other end of the 150s building is one of our other science classrooms. This is one of the classrooms where we left the island. You could see that before we had a lot of wire mold and a lot of stuff going on towards the back end of the classroom with a projection screen. In the after picture, we have one of our new whiteboards that's able to act as a projection screen and a writable surface for our teaching staff.
And this might not be a question for you, but I thought not all of our science moved to our new center.
We have more than 30 math and science classrooms.
So that they're not just all encompassed in the, okay.
It is right adjacent.
And remember, we had one of the impetus to make for the STEM building is we really only had, I believe it was 2 chemistry labs that could really run the chemistry labs, and so people swapped in and out when it was their labs. So we kept those chemistry labs as well. And some of the other rooms have turned into the CTE medical path, the new CTE medical pathway that's been within the last 2 years as well. But yeah, no, we have more math and science rooms, and if the CSUs continue to want to see where we hear potentially a third year of science down the road, many of our students do, along with the really encouraging 4 years of math, we still have some available rooms within these areas that we could use. And so we were thoughtful of not wanting to repurpose all of the science rooms into like an English or other classroom, just in case the science needs grow for further potential.
Okay, thank you.
I believe there's about 4 classrooms where we left these science islands, and there's about 8 that we removed them. Moving right along to the 300s building. Now this is the 300s is about 20 classrooms, and it mainly consists of our English departments and our other language arts classrooms. On the left-hand side, you could see one of our older whiteboards with aged carpet and everything else. And then on the right-hand side, you could see one of our new projectors with the 2 larger boards. On the right-hand side, you could see that the teacher's lectern is located on one end of the whiteboard area with the projector adjacent to that as well. So that is trying to achieve that same setup as the dual projector display, where a teacher is able to project while having a visual aid to their side. This is, I believe, classroom 301, and you could see a lot of our classrooms had differing color schemes and just a lot of maintenance or a lot of improvements that have been done over time that really weren't tied into the building itself. With the wire mold, you could see with the wire mold and the access panels for fire alarm. If you look at the lower left picture, on that white wall, you may see some of the access panels for the fire alarm and other telecom that wasn't in use anymore. At least those panels weren't. And we were able to put new cover plates on those and really clean up our classrooms. So on the right-hand side, this is the same classroom before and after. So one of the main things we were trying to do when designing these classrooms and working with our teaching staff was to establish where they wanted their teaching desk, and then we would locate the projector to the opposite side of that. So that way when they accessed their teaching desk or had to grab some materials, they weren't walking in front of the image, and they were able to kind of stay mobile and circulate around the classroom if they wanted to. And then on the 400s building, we had about 6 classroom renovations. And I chose this picture to show everybody because this really shows the extent of the wire mold in some of our classrooms. So you could see the wire on the left-hand side picture. You could see the wire mold running below the whiteboards to the left. It was really kind of everywhere in all of our classrooms. So we really wanted to get rid of that wire mold and run it through our walls and just provide outlets, especially as things are going to a more wireless data state. And these are some more pictures of our 400 classrooms. The 2 pictures on the top, those are the same classroom before and after. And then there's some other finished classrooms on the bottom as well. In the middle picture, it shows one of our new tack walls where our teachers fully utilize that tackable space, which is what it's designed for, and kind of creates their own look to their classroom. They're able to personalize it a little bit.
Another quick question. How long will that tack wall last? I know my cork does not last terribly long.
So it really depends on how often and how it's used, but typically it lasts longer than carpet. It will start. It'll look older before it deteriorates, if that makes sense. So I would estimate like around 15 to 20 years.
The other positive benefit of all these renovations is, which has been a jigsaw puzzle for the administration at Los Alamitos High School, is really bringing teams together. So moving all of English as much as possible together. You can remember there are people were all over, spread out throughout the campus as new teachers get hired, people get wedded to their classrooms. And so really trying to be able to provide these spaces. So even though we have additional math and science teachers, they're right to the left and the right of the STEM building if they have additional math or the science, and then all English really coming together. And so that's ongoing and part of their plan as they renovate the future renovations as well, to really put the teams of departments together as close as possible.
And moving on through the 400 building, we have a lot of our speech and language programs located in some of our hallways of the 400 building. And we really wanted to clean up those office spaces and provide our staff that works in there the tools they need for students in a one-on-one or in a speech and language environment. So in this slide, you could see the before pictures on top with the same room located on the bottom as well. In the pictures on the far right, you could see the water heater and the area where we will be connecting our washer and dryer for our life skills program. So that wall is actually right on the other side is where our life skills program classroom is going to be located. And on our next slide, I have some more information about that. So with our life skills classroom, they're currently in the 600s building, and it's the room they're in right now has really been a room that's been modified over time to accommodate the needs, but it wasn't ever really a space that was designed for that use. So while we were renovating this space, we really wanted to take the time to work with our teaching staff that teaches life skills and determine what their needs are in terms of appliances and create a space that was more conducive to what they're trying to teach our students. In that space, you could see the before picture on the upper left. We have that same operable wall that you would have in the lecture hall, except for some reason they chose bright yellow as the color. So we decided to paint that one more of our accent gray colors, and we kept the same flooring type with the LVT tile throughout that area as well. On the lower left-hand side, you could see a kind of a schematic drawing of what that classroom looks like. That's with the wall closed because that's how it will primarily be used throughout the school year, where you would have a teaching area or a student seating with the teaching wall on the left-hand side, and then casework and appliances that are shown in brown towards the top of that drawing. In that casework is where we'll have our stovetops, our dishwashers, our sinks, and other things that the life skills classrooms require. In the picture on the bottom right, you could see where we've stubbed up for all of those connections, and we're actually installing the casework this week.
When do you anticipate us getting to move the kids there?
So we've coordinated with the site, and we told them that the room will be ready by the end of August.
That's great. We need a ribbon cutting, Nicole. I've been in there. I went during registration, and I love the fact it's in the center of campus instead of those kids being pushed way to the back. They feel more apart.
And it's a beautiful room with high ceilings. It's really, I said the lecture hall was one of my favorites. This is also one of my favorites too.
And then the two teachers who work together, Mr. Moffat, Mrs. Moffat, and Mr. Rauscher, boy, they have that wall that they can ebb and flow as they need, and just to be able to have the cooking and the life skills and the washer and dryer and the space behind, which is right adjacent to our speech. And then some future uses, as you'll hear a little bit later, about be a great area to do a bathroom, because many of those kids sometimes need additional support with an aid in the restroom. And so we believe that there's space behind when we do a bathroom project next year. So it'll be a really great hub for some of our students who need just some additional flexible spaces to meet their needs.
All right, moving on from the renovations. So as you know, after last winter, we've had several roofing projects take place this summer. So we did a complete roof replacements for the 100s building, 300s building, and 400s building at the high school, and a complete campus roof replacement for McAuliffe Middle School. Now, all of those sites, we had a great test run over the weekend where we did have one punch list item where they came back yesterday and corrected it, where we had a minor leak in one of the classrooms. But for the most part, everything held up very well, and we are in good shape. The roofs are complete, and our classrooms are dry. District-wide, we've been following through with our CalShape and HVAC replacements. All of our schools throughout the district are now equipped with Pelican HVAC controls. This allows us to monitor those units remotely, and it improves the air circulation in the classrooms. Along with the CalShape program, we will be replacing all of the HVAC units on our portable classrooms. Those units have been ordered, but they have ever since COVID, they had supply chain in that department has not really recovered. So they have about an 8-month lead time. And we ordered them, I believe, in June. So it is, I believe it's 50 barred units, and then there are some other units we'll be replacing too. In addition to that, we have provided a new asphalt slurry coat for Hopkinson Elementary School. We were originally looking at replacing the asphalt in its entirety for Hopkinson, but with the amount of roofing projects and other work we had going on, we decided to provide a new slurry coat, which will extend the lifespan of the existing asphalt for about 2 to 3 years. So this will be an area where, because the asphalt is more degraded than some of our other sites, we will be looking to probably replace this in the next few years. And the next project we have is the Los Alamitos High School Wellness Garden. This was a project that was done in partnership with LAIF. It cost the district approximately $130,000 with a donation from the Sethi family through LAIF for $45,000. The project scope included the replacement of existing dirt and subgrade. So really in the picture on the top right, that was the portion of the work that the district provided, where we provided what is like a blank slate for the garden, and LAIF kind of came in and took it from there. So with that was the installation of planter areas, river rock, and a concrete land bridge and other outdoor furniture. We have the water feature, we have outdoor power for lighting, and the decorative wood fencing that goes along the perimeter. LAIF at this point has completed the planting and the outdoor furniture installation, and we have the ribbon cutting ceremony scheduled for September 5th. All right, the high school second gymnasium. So we have been going back and forth with DSA for the last, I want to say for all summer. And I feel like a repeating record right now that I am expecting to have approval very soon in the next week or so. As of last week, they were doing some final reviews of the bleacher system. But I'm really hopeful in the next couple weeks we will get approval. Now, once we do get approval, we have contacted all of our contractors, and we'll be looking to have bids within about 6 weeks of that approval. And with that bid, the weight room is going to be bid as an alternate, so we'll have a separate price for that weight room. And at that time is where we can make a decision of whether we want to proceed with the weight room or proceed at a later date as phase 2 to the project. Along with that, we have the California Environmental Quality Act report and the board resolution to hopefully be completed as of tonight. So we held our public comments, and we responded to them through a mitigated negative declaration, and that is up for approval at tonight's board meeting. The construction for the gymnasium is scheduled to take approximately 18 months from the time we give the notice to proceed to our contractor. As you know, the demolition of the existing maintenance building will not occur until the 500 portables are relocated, which currently sit right where this new gymnasium is planning to go. So with the relocation of some of those 500 portables classrooms, we are also going to DSA to have this design reviewed as well. Fortunately, since this is just the relocation of portable classrooms, it's a much quicker DSA process where it's what's called an over-the-counter review, and we should get approval right as soon as we submit this portion of the work. The 2 buildings on the upper left would primarily be used for campus storage, while the 2 building sections on the lower right would be our new maintenance area. And moving on, I just wanted to go over some of our upcoming projects that we have coming up for next summer and throughout the year this year. So So we have our Performing Arts Center display board installation should be occurring this fall. So right now we're just waiting for the delivery of those display boards, and we'll be installing them right away. To continue on with our classroom renovations, we are looking at the 600s, 700s, and 800s buildings. We're doing some of our preliminary walkthroughs to really see how those rooms are being used now. And we will be scheduling meetings with our teaching staff probably mid-September to early October. We're going to probably meet with our teaching staff individually by building and receive input from there. With a lot of like the 600s classrooms, it is our arts area for the campus. So a lot of these classrooms may be a little bit different, where we're going to keep like these stained concrete floors and some of the more industrial features that they have, just because they're more maintenance friendly and more conducive to the subject they're teaching. As Andrew alluded to earlier, we have the restroom renovations projects. Now, with those classroom renovations that we completed this summer and are continuing next summer, we are not touching any of the restrooms in those renovations. And the reason for that is when we adjust restrooms, we're required to go to DSA and upgrade all of our restrooms to meet ADA code. With that requires quite a bit of review and quite a bit of, I'm just going to say, stumbling blocks that we didn't want to hold up our classroom renovations. So what we are wanting to do is take a complete restroom project for the high school and submit it to DSA. In this project, we're trying to really encapsulate all of our restroom needs for the campus. Those would include existing restroom renovations. So all of our existing restrooms in the 300s building, 600s building, putting new finishes, new fixtures, new partitions, and bringing them up to the current code. Additionally, we're looking at additional restrooms at the Performing Arts Center. We have walked that area with some of our architects, and we're looking at the 2 winged areas that are exterior to the Performing Arts Center, but would also be easily accessed from the Performing Arts Center. While we can't easily modify that building, we may be able to put a structure alongside of it that can be easily accessed for restrooms. Due to the size of the existing restrooms at the Performing Arts Center and the current codes for ADA, it's very likely that when we go to renovate those restrooms, that they will be turned into single stall restrooms. So if we are going to do that, we will need to make accommodations to increase restrooms elsewhere. Further along, additional staff restrooms at the STEM building. So we've explored some areas in our teacher's lounge on the 2nd and 3rd floor, or the PLC rooms, where they currently have a storage closet, where we'll be able to create that into a secondary single occupancy restroom.
Staff on the 2nd and 3rd floors are having time difficulties to get to the restroom, to the staff restrooms where they are. So they have requested for additional restrooms.
And then the next phase or section of our restroom project with the new gymnasium, we have the existing gymnasium with the portable restroom located outside of it. Now, while that portable restroom doesn't necessarily sit directly in the footprint of the new gymnasium, it is right on the edge of that new building, and our new gymnasium is going to have a lot of additional exterior access restrooms as well, where we would probably want to look to relocating that portable restroom to a location that's near where the football coach's office currently is. That's also would be able to service the pool area, softball, and everything that's on that end of the campus. In addition, because we just completed the pool project several years ago, all the plumbing connections and everything is right there if we wanted to relocate it there as well. And then lastly was the restroom that Andrew was referencing earlier, which would be an additional life skills restroom at the 400s building. And that area that restroom would be constructed is actually adjacent to the speech and language area where where those offices were seen in the previous pictures. There's a space right there where we had to bring the plumbing out for the washer and dryer appliances, and we could add a restroom there if that's how we want to proceed. So right now we have our architect working out a proposal for all of this, and they are sectioning it out as outlined on this slide. Next, we have our high school synthetic turf replacement. So with our synthetic turf, it usually has a lifespan of about 10 to 12 years, and ours is really reaching that end of its life. So we've been spending some time trying to get some proposals. With synthetic turf, typically the price on an annual basis goes up at the end of fall. So we're trying to get that proposal right now so we could get the reduced price and have it in line for next summer if we choose to proceed with that. Right now, it's looking to be total all in about 1.1 to 1.2 million. With that would include a new top layer surface for the track as well, and striping, and any type of design that you would want on the turf itself as well. Continuing along, I wanted to definitely mention our district-wide site improvement projects. Some of the things that we're doing at all of our other campus, a lot of our elementary schools are requesting Gaga ball pit courts, which is a new one for me. And then other safety-related fencing, gates, and access control improvements. So a lot of times at our like CDC areas, we want additional access controls to monitor who's coming and going from those areas. It's basically like a octagon.
Board play there. We could have a meeting. Yeah.
It's an octagonish circle. It's a game that really they used in OSS and became a really popular game. And so a few of our schools have implemented. If you see Lee Elementary, McGaw, PTA, I think their PTAs have funded it, and we've tried to help because it has to be on asphalt. And I think there's a few other now campuses requesting them as well. So through partnerships with their PTAs and our facilities department.
CJ, thank you so much for your presentation. I know that summers are horrifically busy for you and for all of your department members. I really want to say thank you to all the powers that be that wanted to upgrade all of the math and science rooms that were not in the STEM building. I would hate for any of our staff or any of the students to feel that they're second-class citizens at the high school because they're not in the pretty new building. And to renovate them and to have the same equipment and have everything being just, perfectly new and functional is going to be inspirational to every kid and teacher who walks into those rooms. So thank you. Like I said, whoever that decision made, that was a really good one.
Thank you.
I have two other quick questions. So I really like what you said about putting all departments together. This isn't for you necessarily, when possible. So that means that some long-term teachers are going to be in different classrooms, and that's been well received?
Well received is an interesting, I think it's something the staff understand philosophically and see the big picture. But when you've been in a particular classroom, and if you might be, I've got 5 years, 3 years, pick the number that people might say sometimes towards retirement. But I think that, but through conversations with the high school administration, they've been able to navigate that process and be able to see the big
awesome.
picture. Yeah.
And then the 1.1 million, that's just coming for the, first of all, I cannot believe we're at the point of replacing that. But that's coming out of our general maintenance budget.
It'll largely become out deferred maintenance. We
Deferred
could use,
maintenance? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's something that we knew when we installed it, something that we
Yes.
have to budget for it ongoingly as well.
Okay.
And so, yes.
Great. Thank you.
I was on the board when we decided to do the all-weather track and the synthetic turf, and we discussed the cost of replacing it. And at one point, I think we were torturing the current CBO on the cost of seriously fertilizing, reseeding, and personnel to keep the field looking good, which is a really hard thing to actually extrapolate for 10 years. How much would that cost as opposed to replacing it? But we knew that the day would come when we would need to replace it.
I just, thank you, CJ. I can't imagine how you juggled all that. I plan to do a lot of projects, and I got one closet and 2 drawers done. So your capacity to lead in all of this with your team is absolutely amazing. And as a former teacher, whatever you can get done in summer is such a relief to staff. And so thank you very much for all that you accomplished and all that your team accomplished. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I do want to throw a shout out, like Elvia said, to our IT department. They've really helped out a lot. A lot of times at the very end of summers when they have to come in, and I know I stress Mr. Sprados out sometimes. So.
We have no cards, right, Tina? Then we will go into closed session to discuss labor negotiations, public employee discipline, dismissal and release, and student discipline, and return at 6 o'clock for a regular meeting.